A young man discovers that he can travel in time and modify the past, but any small change he makes completely changes his life. That's why today the Butterfly Effect is the story of Ashton Kutcher, who we don't know why, but he is escaping from someone. He writes that if someone finds this paper, the plan did not work and he is probably dead, but apparently it's the only way to save someone. This doesn't make sense right now, and it doesn't really matter because the story takes us 13 years earlier with Ashton Kutcher as a kid. In this movie, he is called Evan. The boy lives with his mother and she takes him to school, but that same day the teacher tells him that when they ask the kids to draw what they want to be when they grow up, Evan drew that, and the worst part is that the boy doesn't remember doing it because he apparently has some disease that causes him to lose his memory in some occasions. The point is that they take Evans to the hospital and the mother doesn't want him to end up like his father, so the doctor recommends that he write everything he does in a diary to improve his memory or something like that. Even though this diary thing doesn't really work because at one point he grabbed a knife and when the mother asks him what he was doing with it, he says he doesn't know. Now we meet George, and he is the father of two brothers who are friends with our character named Tom and Kylie, and he is going to take care of him during his problem. The problem is that he is an alcoholic. He forces them to film a movie nude, and Evans loses memory of that moment later. The doctor says that Evans doesn't have anything and that the fainting spells are probably due to stress, although the mother wonders the same thing as us. What kind of stress can a 7-year-old child have? And this can be due to not having a present father because the last time he lost memory was when he was at the house of a friend's father. So his mother believes that it's best for him to meet his father, who is named Jason and is interned in a psychiatric hospital. Well, the plan goes pretty bad because when he enters the room, he loses memory again, and when he recovers, his father is trying to kill him, making the doctors intervene, but they end up killing him. 6 years later, Evans is smoking with Tom, Kylie, and a boy named Lenny when suddenly Tom finds an explosive and gives it to him to blow up a button of a neighbor. But when it's about to explode, Evans loses memory again and recovers it when they are all escaping. Elenia is lying on the floor. An ambulance appears, and the mother asks Evans what happened, but he doesn't remember anything. After that, Evans goes with a psychologist who makes him go back to the moment in the forest with his friends. It seems they were waiting for something to explode. After that, a car appears. He starts having hallucinations, but it's not clear what's happening. So he starts bleeding and wakes up the next day. The mother takes the three friends to the movies and asks them what happened with the mailbox, but Tom doesn't want to tell her. In the middle of the movie, Kylie stands up and follows her, and they end up kissing. But at that moment Tom appears. He's angry because she kissed his sister, and they end up fighting with a bigger guy who was in the movie theater. Now, after all this, the mother tells Evans that they are moving a couple of days later. Lenny has returned home after the accident, and the two friends go for a walk with him, but while they are walking they see some smoke and realize that Tom wants to set fire to Ebba's dog. After hitting the two of them, and just when he's about to burn the dog, Evans loses memory again. When he wakes up from the fainting spell, they see that apparently Tom set fire to the bag with the dog, and it's not clear why he's crying. What's important is that now, after all this, Evans moved with his mother, but not before telling Kylie that he will come back for her 7 years later. Our character finally goes to college, studies psychology and things related to memory. He lives with a kind of weird guy named Samper. On that same day they celebrate because Evans has been 7 years without losing memory. So they go to a bar and they meet a girl, and when they return to their room, she asks him to read one of her diaries, but just when he starts reading the day that Tom set fire to the dog, while he starts cutting everything that happened there, it seems he fainted. But all this seems something more than a dream, so he decides to go visit his childhood friend Lenny, who apparently still builds airplanes and sleeps in the same bed as 7 years ago. There, he asks him about that day at the scrapyard, but he tells him that he couldn't cut the rope. But then he says something else: let go, slaughter your mother, half asleep, which is the same phrase that Evans heard when he fainted. So he realizes that it wasn't a dream, but it actually happened. After that, he starts reading the diaries, and he reads the one of the day it happened and discovers that apparently it didn't explode. he burned his stomach with a cigarette. The woman of the house came to the mailbox, and just at that moment the rocket exploded. But the important thing is that when he wakes up, he realizes that he has a scar on his stomach that he didn't have before. Although he wants to talk to Lenny again, his mother doesn't let him. In the end, after that, he continues reading the diaries, and he reads the one of the time that the guy left him naked in front of a camera, but there he appears eating. He says that it must be for something that he doesn't remember. So Evans decides not to read it, and instead he decides to go visit the girl he told he would come back to visit, but he never did in 7 years. After work, they meet again, and she tells him that Tom is working in a mechanic workshop and that he no longer lives with his father. But there he starts remembering some things, and he asks her about the movie with their parents, but she starts getting sad. She tells him that nothing is going to get better, and she gets angry because he never called her or looked for her again. So he leaves, and when Evans returns to the room, he listens to a message from Tom, who is angry because after talking to him, his sister wouldn't stop crying, and she ended up committing suicide. On that same day, after the funeral, Evans realizes that the scar did not appear out of nowhere, and if he can make it look capable, he can erase it. So he starts reading the diary from that time when Kate's father was involved, and when George tells them to take off their clothes, Ava starts to tell him that if he does all of this, his daughter will end up committing suicide and things like that. Finally, she tells him to discipline his son Tommy and never touch that again. After that, he stands up and has a strange half vision, and apparently, thanks to that change, the timeline changed the present, and now they are dating and living together. When he asks her about that time with the video camera, she tells him that her father only used it one day and then gave it away. The problem is that he is no longer friends with the professor's hat, and he is friends with the dumbest kids in school at night and invites his girlfriend to dinner. But it all ends when someone destroys his car, and even though the rest think it was from the other fraternity, inside the car there is a dog collar, and apparently that's how they realize it was Tommy who got out of prison recently, because apparently the father never hit her and only hit Tommy, who then killed his dog, and all those things that we already saw. And on top of that, when they are returning, Tommy appears. He is jealous because he is successful and also angry because he took his sister. So he fights, and I don't really know how, but Evans ends up killing Tommy. This event leads him to end up in prison where everyone treats him badly, but at least his mother brings him a couple of journals from when he was a kid. The problem is that the guys in prison steal the journals, and on top of that, they want to kill him that same night. So he starts talking to his cellmate, and in order to make him believe his story about time travel, he reads a sheet from his journal from when he had to draw when he was a kid. He gets in that moment and sticks it in his hands to show the scar to his cellmate. So now the guy believes him, and that's why he's going to help him with the plan that consists of talking to the guys who want to kill him and telling them that he's going to do whatever they want. Just at that moment, attacking them, and with the help of his cellmate, time traveling to the day when Tommy killed his dog. There was something to break the bag, and he gives it to Lenny so he can free the dog, and then he is about to set it on fire. Something strange happens because Evans convinces Tommy not to kill the dog and to release it, and right there he kills Tommy. So now in the present, Tommy died, went crazy, and left home with someone strange. After that, Evans goes to see Lenny, who is in a loony bin, although nothing happens there. Lenny is already angry because they believe that he should be in his place. After that, he starts reading the time he saw his father and asks for information to correct things, but Jason tells him not to change anything. But as the boy tells him he is going to do it anyway, his father tries to kill him. Afterwards, he goes to ask about Kylie, but she never worked at that restaurant. He goes to find his father, gets the address, and now lives in a horrible place. He has a scar on his face from that day when Tommy died, and now he spends his time consuming drugs. He tells her all this about time travel, but she doesn't believe him and ends up sending him. So now he is going to change what happened that day with the mailbox. He avoids the woman from getting close and takes her and saves the woman, and the bomb explodes. But now in the present, Evans doesn't have hands, it seems. After that, he lost his arms, he starts dating Katie, and Tommy is a good person, and since he saved the lady, he became religious. One day at the university, they start talking about how they would have been a nice couple and things like that, but now she is with Lenny and that is not going to change. So now Evans tries to commit suicide, but he takes and saves him. He tells him he can't give up, and after that he goes to see his mother, who apparently now has lung cancer because she started smoking after the accident. So now he is going to change everything so that his mother doesn't have cancer. So for that, he is going to destroy the explosive. He travels a day where he was at home. He grabbed a knife to break the explosive, but there his mother sees him and wakes up from the time travel. Afterwards, he goes back to traveling to the day of the video. He grabs the explosive, but when he tries to explode it, he falls near Kylie and the girl dies. From that, now he is the one in a psychiatric hospital. He asks the doctor where his diaries are, and he tells him that there was never a diary and it was all his imagination that he created in his mind to cope with the guilt of having killed Kaylee, because apparently all the alternate universes he created in his head, just like his father who always asked him for a photo album. Although he never had one after that, he faints. The doctor tells him that the damage to his head is irreversible, and Em asks her mother to bring her some films from when she was younger. Then she enters the office and writes the message we saw at the beginning. It says that if anyone finds this, his plan did not work and he is already dead, but if he can go back and change everything, he might be able to save the AI. She turns on one of the tapes where she met Kate, but the first time she sees him, he tells her that he hates her and that's why they never saw each other again. The rest of the three friends were happy and he doesn't know Kelly, and apparently everything is fine, so they burn all the journals and films. 8 years later, her mother is alive, he is a psychologist, and at one point he crosses paths with Kaylee, but instead of greeting her, he decides to continue with his normal life. That was the butterfly effect. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell to not miss the next videos.